Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I am going to be sharing with you guys how my husband and I saved thousands on our wedding day. So I'm pretty sure the average price for a wedding is like $13,000 and we spent half of that price. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys all the tips and tricks and how we saved money. First, I'm just going to tell you guys on like how we saved money, but also like how we went about with our wedding planning process, because it was like we had a plan in the beginning but then it changed throughout like later on. So basically, I've always dreamed of having an intimate ceremony with just like family. I didn't know for sure if that's what we were going to do until something happened. So basically, I've always dreamed of having that. I always dreamed of having like a travel destination ceremony with just family. I always love like the travel wedding photos. That's like always been my dream. I'm a photographer too, so that's like my favorite thing to capture. I just love it. It's so fun to me. I love traveling. So I always just dreamed of that, even way before I even met my husband. And then I never actually knew if it was going to become a reality or not. Like I always thought like, oh, I'm probably just gonna have a normal wedding, like a traditional wedding. I'm probably not gonna have like the intimate wedding elopement style. But just to fast forward so you don't click out of this video if you don't want to get eloped, we still had a reception, but we did have an intimate ceremony. Just wanted to point that out. So we still had like a huge reception party. It was just a month later. So basically what happened is one of my favorite photographers was doing a giveaway for an intimate wedding elopement style, and this was like before me and Gabe even got engaged. So I entered into it thinking like, oh, like this could potentially happen but maybe not. I know I'm not engaged yet, but I know it's coming soon. Like I have a feeling it's coming soon. So I entered into it. We won the giveaway, and 2 weeks later after we won the giveaway, my husband proposed to me. It was like just so crazy. It was coming into realism, like okay, like we have to actually decide now what we're doing. We have a free photographer now, besides we have to pay for her travel, and we are engaged now. Let's really figure this out. At this point, we knew we wanted to have our honeymoon in Hawaii. I knew I wanted to have like a cheaper wedding and like save more money towards our honeymoon and save more money towards like our future. I know a lot of people go into their first year of marriage very tight on money, and I didn't want to be that kind of person, but I still wanted to have my dream, if that makes sense. I didn't want to just like skimp out on things. So what we did is we were like, let's just have our ceremony in Hawaii too and have our honeymoon in Hawaii, and then like after our ceremony we'll be in Hawaii for a few days with our family, get married, and then have our honeymoon on our own. Our families can do whatever they want. They can stay in Hawaii or you can fly back home. So that's what our plan was. We were gonna get married in Hawaii, we were gonna have our ceremony in Hawaii, and we were gonna have our honeymoon in Hawaii. Basically, with the prices of venues would basically just be the flights to Hawaii instead. So instead of paying for a venue, we would be getting married on a beach in Hawaii. It's free to get married on the beach, or you have to have a permit to get married on the beach, but it's not very much money. It's way cheaper than a venue, but the flights is what would be the expensive part. So we, for the first few months of our engagement, which we had a 6-month engagement, by the way, for the first few months of our engagement, we literally thought we were getting married in Hawaii this whole time. That was our goal, that was our plan. We were constantly checking flights. We told all of our family already. We told our officiant, which was our young adults pastor, which is where we met, and his wife, which was our premarital counselor. They were gonna come, and like all of us were gonna go to Hawaii, and we were gonna get married in Hawaii, and we had a free photographer besides her travel, and that was our plan for like months. All of a sudden, like all these things were coming at us where we were questioning whether we were supposed to get married in Hawaii or not. One of them being that my sister was gonna be 8 months pregnant by the time we went to Hawaii. We didn't know if you were even allowed to fly when you're that pregnant, if like that's even safe, or if she should even do that. She was a little bit nervous on it because flying to Hawaii, like a whole travel day to Hawaii is like 12 hours from Florida, which is where we live. And we were like, is this a good idea for her to be on a plane for this long? And then another reason being that my husband's dad was gonna get surgery on his foot like literally a month before we leave. We didn't know how his foot was gonna be fully healed after that. And then another reason being that my brother and my husband's brother could only get off of 2 or 3 days of work by the time we flew to Hawaii, and they flew back to Hawaii. Literally the only thing they would be able to get to do in Hawaii is fly there, see our ceremony, fly back. And they didn't know, like, obviously they both would have done it because they know that was what me and my husband wanted and they wanted to be there for us. But they also were thinking, like, is this even worth it? Like, because me and my husband were going to be the ones that were paying for their flights, and they were like, is this even worth it for you to like pay for our flights and we don't even get to really enjoy Hawaii? So basically my husband and I were praying. We were like, oh my gosh, like, we have so many things coming at us. We don't know if this is the right decision. The flights were fluctuating back and forth. It was hard to find flights for like all of my family to show up on the same plane. It was hard for us to even find 2 flights, like one for Gabe's family, one for my family, for like a good price for all of us to go. Like, it ended up being like more expensive than a venue, and I was like, this is probably not a good idea. We even thought about having our ceremony at a different state and like maybe not going so extravagant as Hawaii and maybe settling for something else. But then I was like, settling for something else when I know I want our honeymoon to be in Hawaii, so maybe let's just stick to having our wedding in Florida. We decided to pray about it, kept praying about it, and honestly we felt peace to not have our wedding in Hawaii anymore. At this point, we already had our reception building paid for and all of the invitations sent out. By the way, our reception building was a community center. It was only $160 to rent, and it came with the tables and chairs. So that is one tip I have for you guys, is to check out community centers as venues. They're way more cheaper than actual wedding venues, and sometimes they're just as pretty. Ours wasn't just as pretty, but I knew that our ceremony and our reception were going to be different days, so I didn't have a problem with our reception building not looking so pretty. Anyways, at this point we had our reception building already paid for, all the invitations sent out, and I'm thinking in my head, I do not want to get married at that reception building. Like, I do not want my ceremony to be held there. I was at this point regretting already paying for the reception building and sending out invitations. And then I was thinking maybe we should have went with like the venue that we were thinking about when we first got engaged. And I had started having all these like problems in my head, like rethinking everything. And that's when my mom gave me the idea, why don't you just still have an intimate ceremony like you want, but just do it on the beach? We live in Florida, we can do it on the beach. And I was like, wait, that's actually a really good idea. I've always dreamed of a beach wedding. My husband told me before we even got engaged that he wanted a beach wedding. I never actually thought it was possible to have a beach wedding because there's not really any beach venues in Florida, which is kind of strange. You wouldn't expect that, but most of the venues in Florida that are on the beach are like ugly hotels, or they're way south. And we live in like central, like near Orlando, so they're like way south, like near Miami, and I was just like, I don't know if I want that. So I just figured like a beach wedding is out now because they don't have any venues on the beach in Florida. So when my mom made up the idea of like having the intimate ceremony on the beach, I was like, wait, since you can basically get married in Hawaii on a beach for free with a permit, you can probably do the same in Florida. Started researching it all and found out that you can get married on certain beaches in Florida for free, and you don't even need a permit unless you have over 30 people, which we weren't having over 30 people. So found out we literally could get married on a beach that was like an hour away from us for free. And I was like, that's a really good idea. All we have to do is rent the chairs and that's it. So that's what we decided to do. I do want to point out that if you guys do not want to have a ceremony and reception different, here are a few tips on what you guys can do to have a cheaper option rather than choosing a venue that's their minimum price is $5,000. Because me and my husband did check out certain venues. We looked up so many online. I'm a wedding photographer. I already knew about certain venues in Florida, and the cheapest one we found was $5,000 because most of them like include their catering, or you have to use their catering. And like we looked up like 4 different venues, like emailed them, we were gonna like tour them and everything, and when they told us that their minimum was $10,000, and their minimum was 13,000, and then this one's minimum was 5,000. We were like, maybe this is not what we're supposed to do. So then we finally found a venue that was 1,500, and it was like in a garden, and that was like our top choice. But then I was like, I still just keep going back to that intimate ceremony, and I'm still going back to the travel destination, and my mind just couldn't get off of that. So that's when we decided not to do the venue. But here's a few options on what you can do. Backyards of Airbnbs. Literally just check out, like, to see if it has a big yard. You can even find an Airbnb on the ocean. You can find an Airbnb that's on a farm. And like, there's a lot of great Airbnbs out there. You could always get married in the backyard of an Airbnb, and it's way cheaper than a venue. You just obviously have to do the decorations and the catering. 2, a church. I know that's traditional. Most older weddings back in the old days got married at a church, but you can still get married at a really pretty church, and it would not cost that much. 3rd option is do a beach, like we ended up doing. And most beaches, if you have less than 30 people, don't require a fee, and if they do require a fee, it's not that much. And then the 4th option is a community center, which is what we did for our reception, which I already mentioned earlier in this video. But I'm pretty sure that if you chose between those 4 options, you would probably find a cheaper option than a wedding venue itself. Sometimes art galleries might have weddings as well. Sometimes like coffee shops that are really big space, sometimes studios offer that. It just really depends on where you live and in the area you are in, but I know those are just some things I've seen as a wedding photographer. One thing is that we actually ended up not using our giveaway photographer for our intimate wedding ceremony because I had the idea in the back of my mind, maybe we can still take those like elopement style photos on our honeymoon. I know it's not the same, but like we can still get those photos, and we already won the giveaway, so we might as well just have her travel to Hawaii and still take our photos there. We can just bring our wedding dress and our suit and our suitcases with us. So that's what we ended up doing. I also already like told her she's going to Hawaii, like already told her that, and I just didn't want to like tell her like, yeah, you're not going to Hawaii anymore, can you come to Florida instead? Florida's still great, but you kind of get the point. So I ended up hiring a photographer that already lived in Florida to do our photos, and since our wedding ceremony was only like 2 hours long, I only needed the photographer and videographer for 2 hours instead of like a 6 to 12 hour wedding day, which is what most wedding photographers packages are. I asked her, hey, do you have any 2-hour wedding packages? I just need you for 2 hours. It's just the ceremony, family photos, and bride and groom photos, and that's it. And then she said yeah, so I ended up paying our photographer for $800. She also was like 2 or 3 hours away, so she had to drive up north because she was in South Florida. And then our videographer charged $700. That was probably the most expensive part of our ceremony, but those are the things that will last forever. If I had to come away from my wedding day paying for anything, it would be the photography, because that's what you take away from your wedding day. You don't take away your food or your wedding cake or your decorations or anything. You take your photos. We decided to rent chairs that were like wooden chairs. Ended up being $106. Our backdrop my sister actually made, because she makes backdrops as her like business. She does like beach picnic rentals, so that ended up being nice. We ended up paying for our marriage license, which was $89. We ended up not having to pay for our beach at all. The ring box that I wanted to use for our detailed photos was $13.50 from Amazon. And then the flower girl baskets and the ring pillow that my nieces and nephew used was off of Facebook Marketplace for like $20 for 3 baskets and a ring pillow. And then the next things are things that we use for both our ceremony and our reception, and some of them we even use for our honeymoon as well, like our wedding dress and suit. So another thing, like I said, that I would rather pay money for besides a photographer is the wedding dress. The wedding dress is what you see in all the photos. It is what is going to be there. Choose something that you feel confident in. Choose something that you love. So my dress budget was like $1,200, and that is cheap for a wedding dress. If you guys are interested in seeing my wedding dress video, I'll have it in the cards. It's on my YouTube channel, but I kind of just go in more into depth into wedding dress shopping because it's actually way more goes into it than you would probably think. But $1,200 is cheap for a wedding dress. I could have gotten my wedding dress cheaper if I found one at the outlet. I went to 2 different outlets and even tried to find one, and I just still didn't love one. So I decided not to go with a wedding dress from the outlet. But most of the wedding dresses at the outlets I went to were the same price as the one I bought. So I bought one for $1,170. The only thing is that it needed alterations, and most of the ones I tried on at the outlets didn't need alterations, and that's when the money came through, which was $480 for the alterations. So that was my wedding dress price, but I got to wear it for our ceremony, for our honeymoon, and for our reception, so I feel like it was worth it, and I liked it a lot. I loved it. And then my husband's suit was $228 on thesuitshop.com. They have so many different colors, so many different options. You literally just give them your size, and you can even take a quiz on how to find what your size is, and they like come in and actually fits really well. The only thing that you have to do is hem the pants, which my mom did because she knows how to sew, so we didn't have to pay for anybody to do my husband's pants because my mom did it. And then he already had the white button down in his closet. He didn't need to buy a new one, and he didn't wear a tie. So, and he also wore shoes that he already had because he just wore like Nike Blazer mid 77s. And then I went barefoot because we were on the beach. Another thing was that my bouquet was like a dried bouquet. So it wasn't like real, or they were real flowers, but they weren't like alive flowers. So my bouquet was off of Etsy for $30, and then my husband's boutonniere was the same thing, like a dried one, for like $9 on Etsy. So those were both really good. We used both of them for our reception as well. If you guys do love colorful flowers, go for that, but I will warn you that flowers are really expensive. So like, first just make a list of what you want to spend your money on. Like I said, mine was the photographer, the videographer, and my wedding dress. Those are the things I was okay with spending money on. So then you can like work around the budgets of those, and then everything else you can go cheaper on. You can thrift, you can DIY. I do know that venues, food, and the photographer and videographer are probably like the top 3 most expenses of a wedding. So the venue is like the #1 though. So we like went cheap on that, which I already talked to you guys about. Besides that, I forgot to mention our vow books. We used our vow books for our ceremony, which I actually got sponsored by a brand, so I ended up getting the vow books for free. But if I bought them, they were only $24. And I will link everything down below that I talk about in this video, just in case you guys are interested. And I also have like a Instagram story highlight of like all my wedding links if you guys wanted to see them on there as well. Then the day of our ceremony, we went to a restaurant with just my family afterwards, and my husband's parents paid for that. So instead of us having a rehearsal dinner where usually the parents of the groom pay for the rehearsal dinner, instead of them paying for that because we didn't have a rehearsal dinner, they paid for our food on the restaurant ceremony day. That is everything we paid for our ceremony. It ended up being pretty cheap, and we could have left it at that. We wanted to have a party with all of our friends and aunts and uncles and all of that, so we decided to do another celebration for the reception. But if you guys are really on a tight budget, you could always just stick to an intimate wedding and you will save so much money. Now onto our reception. So the first thing, like I mentioned, is we did a community center, which was $160 with the chairs and tables included. We had to pay for the linens, the table linens, which I found on Facebook Marketplace for $50. They're on Amazon for like $150, I'm pretty sure. And then we did cheesecloth table runners, also found on Facebook Marketplace for like $50. A lot of people sell them on Etsy, but you can also make them for way cheaper if you just buy cheesecloth off of Amazon and some dye. And then I made our cheesecloth napkins out of cheesecloth from Amazon and some dye. Ended up being only like $25 to make those, which ended up turning out really good. The vases I DIY'd, so I bought a bunch of vases from the thrift store, and then I actually painted them. I have like an Instagram reel all about it, and I also will show it in my future video of the DIYs we did for our wedding. As for the like table numbers, my friend actually bought those for us as a gift from Amazon. I think they're only like 20 bucks, and they're just clear gold frames, and then I just put Polaroids in them and then added each table number on them with like a calligraphy. And then as for all of the place cards on our wedding table, I did myself, and they're just place cards from Amazon as well. And then on my husband and my table, we had like this really cute white blanket that I already had. The placemats that we used on my husband and my table, I got from Home Goods, and I also doubled them as home decor, so we used them on our dining table here. The glass cups that I used for my husband and I were like vintage glasses from the Goodwill for $5. Also used them at home. They're on my floating shelves over there. Candlesticks I got from Facebook Marketplace for like $10. Our card box I got for $10 on Facebook Marketplace, where we put all of the cards in for the gifts. Our guest book was another DIY, so I have this brand that I bought from called MPix, and basically just made like a photo book with a few pages blank for like the guests to sign on. So it was like an engagement photo book, but also a guest book too, so it was really cool because I thought it was a better idea than just like having a plain white book with nothing in it. And then our plates and silverware were all plastic, but I wanted them to still look fancy, so we got gold forks, dessert plates, and then I actually bought like Chipotle bowls all on Amazon. That was like $150 for all of that. But we also had like 75 people at our reception, and I bought like 100. And cups too, I forgot to mention cups. So that comes to the other thing, is we had Chipotle, which was probably the most expensive thing for our reception, which we actually were gifted from my grandma. So I'm super thankful that she ended up helping us with that. That was probably the most expensive, and it was like around $1,000, which is still a good deal for catering in my opinion, and a lot of people loved it. Also, I wanted to point out that my parents helped us with some of our honeymoon stuff. And then our invitations, I created another DIY on Canva. I just made the template, printed them through Canva, which they ended up being like $43, and then stamps to send them out were $21, which we could have done that for free completely if we just stuck to online invitations, because they have so many free websites where people can RSVP. You can send invitations on there. So we ended up actually doing our RSVPs on the website and then just sent the invitations in real life, but we could have done that for completely free. So that's a way to save money if you don't mind not having invitations. And the other like more expensive thing for our reception was our neon sign, but we also use it for home decor, so I think it's worth it, and I knew I really wanted it. But our neon sign was from Etsy for like $260. Our cakes were from my sister. She's a baker, and she made all our cakes. She made like a bunch on the table. But another way to save money is like not doing the super extravagant cakes. I know people who literally bought their wedding cake at Publix or had donuts or cupcakes instead. So my sister made her cakes. I ended up just sending her like $50 for that. But yeah, all of the florals on our tables were all dried florals from Etsy and Facebook Marketplace again. In all, for florals, which included all of the tableware, my bouquet, and my husband's boutonniere, we ended up spending like $160 on all florals, which in my opinion is really good for florals, because most of the florals we resold or I use for home decor because it's all dried florals. So we ended up like having double use. And then our welcome sign is another DIY I made. I made like the welcome sign in our table chart on Canva again, printed them through Staples, put them on a foam board, spent like less than $20 on them. And then the last thing is that we actually didn't have another photographer take our photos at our reception. Since I'm a photographer and I already have a camera, I just had my sister take our photos. We didn't have a DJ. My sister's boyfriend just like kind of took over the mic sometimes. My family members just kind of took over the mic, and it all worked out perfectly. We loved it. It was a great way to like have something that we still loved by still saving money. We could have done even more cheaper options, but that's how we did it, and that's how you can save like half the price of what an average wedding is spent. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Look forward to the DIY video coming soon, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.